Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. Today, I'm going to be answering a question that was actually on the live stream yesterday from Marin. Marin asked a question. I can't remember exactly because the live stream's gone down now, but it was something about her hamstrings where she was saying, what do you do when flexibility progress stalls and you just can't make any more progress? You know, I was reaching down towards my toes. I was doing the 20-minute mobility routine and I was making progress and it just seems to have stalled. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today because I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to. I can certainly relate to it myself. And I'm going to talk you guys through several different things because there are some unique approaches to take when you get to this point where you're just kind of banging your head against the wall and not getting any more progress anymore, you know, despite how much work you put in. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you go over and grab the flexibility blueprint. That's where I talk about all of this stuff. You can go to unitygym.com/flexibility and learn all about it. And for those of you that are repeat viewers here, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. All right, so basically what I do, I'm going to cover how you can do self-myofascial release on your body, the different types of self-myofascial release that I do, why I do it, and also some different sort of techniques that you can do, things that people wouldn't think of that would actually give you more flexibility in a certain area. Because fascia is like the scaffolding for our nerves and our muscles and our organs and everything. When you get a chicken breast, if you look at a chicken breast, this is the best description I've had of it. There's that clear layer of film on the outside of the chicken breast that you can peel off. That's fascia. And it's the slimy stuff that allows muscles and nerves to slide, frictionless against each other. Without the fascia, you'd have friction from muscle on muscle because you've got all these muscles are like interlaid on top of each other and running in different directions. And, this muscle will pull and contract in this way, and this muscle will pull and contract in that way. And so they need to be able to move frictionlessly against each other. And that's what fascia's job is. And fascia actually can tighten up and loosen up. Like when you warm up, naturally your fascia will actually, this was an interesting thing. I heard this from somebody who was he used to do fascia massage. And he used to always tell me about how the reason why when you go into a hot shower and then you come out and you feel like your aches and pains are gone is because it warms up the fascia, but it warms it up unnaturally. And apparently when you warm up your fascia unnaturally like that, like in a shower, in a hot shower, it goes through this process where when it cools down and it hardens more than it was before. And so if you rely on that, you're continually creating this cycle where you only feel good just after you've had a shower and then you feel worse and worse and worse when your body cools down. But when the fascia warms up naturally, as in through circulation of blood flow, through the body warming up, like by doing a warm-up before you do a training session, then there's no problem with that at all. And so doing the techniques that I'm going to talk about now, they are ways that you can warm up the fascia and you can experience breakthroughs with your flexibility without having to, without doing it unnaturally. So it all really comes down to self-trigger point release, so foam rolling and things like that. So my go-to, this is for me what I do daily, is the foam rolling routine, and this is all in the 20-minute mobility routine that is part of our flexibility masterclass. So if you go to our website, unitygym.com, you can have a look at the flexibility masterclass there, which is where I teach you how to use that. And there's different types of foam rollers. When I started with a thinner foam roller, not a thinner one, a softer foam roller, and that was pretty intense for me. And then eventually I moved to a rumble roller that was thicker than that one, which means it was less intense. And then eventually I went to that one, which is a really thin, really intense one. Because it's like when you get massages, the first couple of times you get a massage, it's really, really tough and you can't handle it. And then after a while, it feels really good. So, and the reason why that can, I want to bring this back and I want to make sure that I stay on topic for what I've titled this show to be. So if you've hit a flexibility plateau, your hamstrings aren't getting more flexible, but you're doing the same things. Often it's a systematic thing because if you've got tight fascia, you can, like I've had breakthroughs in flexibility in my hips because I dealt with fascia tightness in my back. Like I did foam rolling and things like that in my lower back. And conversely, I also get, like my back will be really stiff and tight, and I can deal with areas in my hips, especially in the front of my hips, in the hip flexors, so the vastus lateralis and the TFL, the tensor fascia latae, so these little muscles that cross your hip that aid in hip flexion. And when I deal with tightness in those with foam rolling, the tightness in my lower back will loosen up, and I'll have more range of motion and less pain in my lower back. So the body is this incredible system that works together. And so sometimes the approach, if you can't get more flexible in a certain area, sometimes the approach is to look at the whole body and look at what can I do to alleviate tightness through my whole body. And that's why I really, really like foam rolling. And then a more aggressive approach for it, you can use one of these lacrosse balls, a trigger point release ball. So this is much more intense, because this is like this one little point that's pushing into a part of your body versus a foam roller that's covering a wider area. And these are really inexpensive. It's very important. I highly recommend that you get a lacrosse style massage ball. There's so many different brands of them. And if you go to the wrong places, they'll charge you $30 for them. But if you go to Amazon, you'll be able to see them. In Australia, they're less than $10. So I think I've seen them over on Amazon UK for like £6 or something like that. And this is such a good tool when you know how to use it. We teach people how to use this inside our UMS online personal training. So in a nutshell, it's that you basically just put it against a body where you need work, and then you apply pressure to that, either against a wall or against the floor, is generally the approach for it. And so we've got all these different muscles in our body. So, it's about finding the areas that are really tight and exploring your body. And, it's like when I started doing all this stuff, it was a daily thing for me. It's this daily exploration of the tightness and the knots that you can find in your body. But after you get to a point where your body is functioning pretty well, it's almost like it's just a daily check-in. It becomes far less work to, like there was a level of work that I had to go through for months and maybe even years, where I was doing a lot of trigger point release and a lot of foam rolling regularly and a lot of this stuff to really work out tightness in my body that had developed over a lifetime. But once I got to a point where my body was performing pretty well and I was much more loose and limber, and you enter this maintenance phase, it's just so much easier. Like I don't even do this daily anymore. Sometimes I'll do it every day for a week, and then other times I won't do it for an entire month. It just depends on how my body feels. Like it's all about doing what your body needs and having, the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more capable you are of dealing with an issue. So when you have your foam rolling, that's one tool that you have in your toolbox. And when you have your lacrosse massage ball, that's another tool that you have in your toolbox. And then some less used tools, but also still very effective tools for me, are the So Right here, this thing, and a firm yoga block. So this is one of those cork yoga blocks. It's not pliable at all. Like I can push as hard as I want in it and it doesn't go anywhere. And the reason I like those ones is because so these are very specialized bits of equipment. I use these for both of them for my hip flexors. I know that people use yoga blocks for a lot of different things. So you can use a yoga block for like thoracic extension. You can use it for a bunch of different things, but I've got different tools for it, so I don't use them for that. So the So Right, the idea of this is that thing here, when you lay on it and you put it in where your hip flexors are, it gets right in specifically to the hip flexors. And if you've ever gone to a physical therapist or a sports masseuse and they say, okay, we're going to get into your hip flexors, they go really deep through your guts. Like they go like just a little bit in from where your pelvis is, where your iliac crest is. And they really get in there because the hip flexors, they start at the front of the hip and they come back and connect onto the spine. So they go right through the body like that. So you have to get really, really deep to get into them. And tight hip flexors are a real concern for me. And they're quite a concern for a lot of people because we all spend too much time sitting at a desk. And sitting at a desk, your hip flexors are in a shortened position. And then that compounds into lower back pain, because what it does is when you stand up with tight hip flexors, it pulls you into an anterior pelvic tilt, and then the anterior pelvic tilt makes your lumbar extensors, so all the muscles in your lower back, shorten, and it puts more pressure on that, and so it just has this compounding effect, which again is this idea of, you know, looking at your body as a system of how you can, like if you've stalled in flexibility progress in one area, looking from a bird's eye view at what you can do to, you know, to fix the issue, not just drilling down on the same, you know, area of the body and expecting a different result. Sometimes you have to sort of stop and take more of a macro perspective with it all. And then what was the, I'm trying to think of what the last things that I was going to say were. Oh yeah, that's right. And then there's also, you know, different kinds of flexibility methods that you can try. Like this week, if you rewatch the live streams where I talked about, on Monday, I talked about the mechanism of flexibility training. And on Tuesday, I talked about the difference between mobility and flexibility. I highly recommend that you listen to those or rewatch the replay of those if you haven't done so already, because you want to be able to do mobility training and flexibility training, because they both have their ways of breaking through flexibility plateaus. And flexibility training is definitely where the majority of the big flexibility gains that I've had, actually, I shouldn't say that. I had a massive flexibility gain with mobility training, with my general 20-minute mobility routine, but it got me to a certain point and it wouldn't take me beyond that. And then to get beyond that point, which was probably like 70 to 80% of, you know, where I'm at now, I had to use flexibility training methods to get there. So end range contractions and loaded stretching, and different methods of both of those. So eccentric loading and isometric loading and contract relax methods. There's all these different techniques that you use. And so it's important to have both of those techniques in your belt, in your toolbox, you know, to be able to use. And we teach you guys both of those in the Flexibility Masterclass. So again, if you want to get that introduction, if you want to learn more about it, get the Flexibility Blueprint, go to unitygym.com/flexibility. And if you want to just go straight to it and buy the program, you can go to unitygym.com and click on the programs tab and have a look at the Flexibility Masterclass. Montana is saying, hi there, what would you consider the best stretch to perform round kicks like Thai people? They seem to stand erect, straight up, and throw head kicks with ease. There is a really flawed part to your question, Montana. My brother and I talk about this all the time. People on YouTube are always asking, what is the best exercise that you can do to achieve this result? And there isn't a best exercise for anything that I've seen. There's, excuse me, I've spoken to so many coaches about this. There's an approach. There's a systematic approach to get you there. And what the approach is identifying what the blockage is for you, and then giving you the set of exercises that will take you to the next level. And then there'll be a different set of exercises that need to take you to that next level. And then a different set of exercises that need to take you to that next level. And there's something that I want to highlight about what you've talked about. To do round kicks like Thai people, if you look at, you know, if you're talking about round kicks like Thai people, you're always talking about the best, right? Nobody's looking at the people that aren't the best and getting inspired by them. You see videos of people who are the best. And guess what? The best people in Thailand that are the best at Thai boxing, they started when they were about 4 or 5 years old. I've seen so many videos on it. They start them when they are really young. And you will never compete with that, ever. There's nothing that you can do that will ever get you to that level. And I'm saying that so that you can be really, really clear on what's realistic and on what is what's worthwhile for you to put your effort into. Because I went down this road myself with martial arts. I started Kung Fu when I was 19. I started Muay Thai when I was 17. I did that for a couple of years. It wasn't for me. I was much more into Kung Fu, and I started Kung Fu when I was 19. And I really committed to Wushu when I was 20. And I was so inspired by the best martial artists, Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan and Jet Li, and I was always, being inspired by them and working towards their ability. And after about 5 years of hard work, it became very clear to me that I would never be able to do what those guys can do. I missed the boat. Every one of them started when they were really young. Bruce Lee started, I think, when he was 14, which was pretty late. But Jackie Chan and Jet Li, they both started when they were about 5 years old. And so did all of the incredible martial artists that I used to look up to. And that's okay. It's okay to not be as good as the absolute best. But it's really important to make that distinction, because for me, nobody told me this. I had to work this out for myself, and it took so long, and it took so many years of heartache, of just feeling like I was a failure, because no matter how hard I tried and no matter how much I pushed myself, I just wasn't close to being, the best of the best. And what I've learned is so much more of a valuable pursuit, and something that is really fulfilling is to be the best that you can be. Because the thing is, those kids in Thailand, I'll tell you something about the best martial artist ever. I've never seen one martial artist, and maybe you guys can correct me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe give me an example. But the best martial artists in the world, every one of them comes from a hard background. And the reason why they are so good at martial arts is because that was their only way out of their life. And my sifu, which is the Chinese word for teacher, he used to say to me, we would, I don't remember how we ever got onto the conversations, but he said, when you go to China and you go to the big cities, if you go to Beijing or Shanghai, none of the people there are good at Kung Fu. And I asked him why, and he said because they've all got televisions, they can go to the movies, they've got phones, they've got a life that makes them happy. The people that are good at Kung Fu, you have to go out to the farms, to the areas where people have no TV and where people have no internet, and the only thing that they have is farming or Kung Fu. And so they do Kung Fu because they just don't have anything else to be able to do. And that was a really interesting concept. He was basically saying to me that in his experience, what he's seen, there are no wealthy people that are really good at martial arts. And the only people that are coming to my mind that I can think about right now, Conor McGregor and Mike Tyson, two of the greatest fighters that are alive, or Muhammad Ali is another one coming to mind. Like, they all came from a really, really hard background. They didn't have money. They didn't have they didn't have a cushy life. And so fighting for them and martial arts for them was the only way out. And so they worked harder than everybody else because they didn't, that was their ticket out of there. And it's debatable that maybe that's why Conor McGregor hasn't done so well in more recent years, because he would have lost that hunger. I mean, imagine, you watch him on his up and coming, and he was just incredible. And then when he hit that pinnacle, he went from being, virtually no one to being one of the richest people in the world within a year. Imagine what that would do to you, what that would do to your hunger to be able, to be the best. And so I'm saying all of that, Montana, because just be really, really careful comparing yourself to the best and thinking, how can I get to that level? So what can you do to be able to increase your kick height is to start with is a 20-minute mobility routine, because you'll get the best result through your whole body at the moment from doing foam rolling and doing a good mobility routine that takes your hips through full range of motion and takes all the joints in your body through full range of motion. And you do that before you do your kicking practice, because then when you do your kicking practice, you can access your full range and you'll be contracting your muscles to get your kicks up nice and high. So you'll be contracting your muscles at end range. And if you make sure that every kick that you're setting a target for yourself where you're kicking to, and you're doing it with good technique, this is where I see a lot of people trying to kick higher that really fail is that they try and kick as high as they can without good technique. And when you kick without good technique, you're always like in a position where you're kind of off balance and you're not really able to control it. So you've got to make sure that even if it means your kick comes down a little bit lower, but you're able to keep your foot more on the ground, you're able to keep more balanced, and you're able to really feel the contractions in your quadriceps and your glutes to get those kicks up, then that will develop. And so that would be the first step for you. And when you really own that 20-minute mobility routine, the next step would be to develop flexibility in the middle splits. Flexibility in the middle splits, doing flexibility training is what really gets those TIE fighters the ability to do those really nice roundhouse kicks, because in that position, at the point of impact when your foot is at the highest, the back foot is turned inward, so that the heel turns towards the target and the legs up the top. So that position mimics the middle splits. So yeah, go and have a read of the flexibility blueprint. You'll learn a lot more about this. So go to unitygym.com/flexibility and check it out. All right, team, that is, I hope you learned something from that. If you guys have any more questions, then please, you're welcome, ma'am. I hope you learned something from that. Was that valuable, what I just said? Did I teach you something that you think is useful? I hope so. If anybody's got any last questions, let me know, because I've got to go and teach a class in a couple of minutes, so I'm going to wrap this up. Mini Meep is saying, hi there, love your work. Is there a way to train where you kick high and leave your leg high? Yeah, absolutely. So you should go and watch. I made a video on this on YouTube. So let me bring it up and I'll show you guys on my channel so you know what to search for. So I made a video exactly on this because I've been asked this question so many times. So if you go to my channel and you click on the videos tab here, that video right there, powerful martial arts exercises for high kicks. Watch that. That will teach you how to kick really, really high. And that is a combination of what I learned in Wushu. So that's me doing a high kick, by the way, so that you know that I can kick high. That's what I learned in Wushu, and also what I've learned in more modern methods of flexibility training. So it's really, really useful information. It'll teach you a lot. So yeah, go and check that out. Mini Meep is saying, similar to Taekwondo practitioners during their demonstrations. Again, be very, 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 very careful when you're looking at Taekwondo practitioners during their demonstrations, because you're looking at people that most certainly have been practicing since they were children. And although you can absolutely learn how to kick high and you can absolutely get flexible as an adult, I did it, but be very, very careful looking at the best of the best and using that as a benchmark for how good you want to be. Okay, just be careful with that. But go and watch that video that I just showed you there. That will teach you how to kick high. And there's also, I've got a high kick blueprint as well, so you can go and grab that, where I teach all the methods. And that is to get it's all on my channel. If you go to my channel, when you go to here, you guys can get these free guides here. So if you click on that, and it shows you the links there. So there it is, the high kick blueprint, unitygym.com/high kick. But you can just go to my channel and click it if you're on a desktop. Unfortunately, I don't think you can click on those links when you're on a mobile, but maybe you can. Give it a try. All right, team. Thanks so much. I hope you learned something from that. And if you guys have any questions, you can see Montana, if you got something valuable out of that, if you guys are on these live streams and you actually ask me questions, it just gives me so much more to talk about. So please come and join me live, and please ask questions and interact, because the more interaction I've got, the more value I can give. And I'm here to help you guys. I'm here to give you value. I'm here to answer your questions. I'm here to hopefully guide you towards the destination that you want to get to, the goals that you want to achieve. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday in Australia. I'll be wrapping up another great week. Have a good day, team.